Outdoor clothing and equipment often pose some very specific problems when they start to break. This is my second episode with Rosanna Watson from Snowdonia Gear Repair. And in this one, she offers up some tips on repairing down and puffy jackets and items with seams and zips that are glued. And on top of sharing her practical advice, Rosanna puts everything into perspective with her repair philosophy. That you don't have to make the garment look like it did when it left the factory. It just has to function. This episode is packed with practical tips and empowerment to help you on your outdoor gear repair journey. So stick around a few minutes and we'll get stuck in. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 16 years and I'm the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge Me Made May. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate crisis and I'm looking at the way that my lifestyle contributes to it. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me in this journey. Hello, lovely one. Thanks for pressing play on this episode. I'm so happy to keep you company whilst you get on with whatever you're getting on with. So this episode is the second part of my conversation with Rosanna. So if you haven't heard it already, pop this one on pause and go and listen to episode 166 first. Okay, cool. So what's going on with you? If you're taking part in the Winter of Care and Repair Challenge, can you believe we're nearly a third the way through already? I've been doing almost daily actions, mainly focusing on repairing clothing and textile items until the weather warms up a bit. But I've also been doing some mindful rehoming of items that my family no longer needs. One thing that I managed in that category is something I'm going to share as my sustainability win for the week. So my kids had a bunk bed until about a month ago when it broke. So it was a cheap, ubiquitous IKEA bunk bed, the Kura, for anyone who's interested. Anyway, I bought it secondhand via Facebook Marketplace about 7 years ago. So it already had a life before we owned it. And then we had it for about 7 years, as I say, during which time we moved house also. So it was taken apart and then put up again not very well by our removal people. Anyway, what I'm saying is that it was cheap and it had a life, and about a month ago it broke. And I didn't feel that it could be repaired and still be safe. So I dismantled it for the last time. But who would want pieces of a broken bunk bed? I took to FreeCycle to find out. I listed it on there with a very honest picture of the state that the pieces were in. So one woman came along and took the main square cut chunky pieces for a table making project that she was about to undertake. And then another woman came and took the slats for her parents to burn on their log burner because they'd just run out of wood and it was right in the middle of that really cold snap we just had. So that's my sustainability win. Lengths of wood I thought I was going to have to take to the tip to be burnt or sent to landfill instead were able to be used as a table and for people who then wouldn't have to buy firewood to keep themselves warm. I think it's so easy to assume that because something's rubbish to you, that it'll be rubbish to everyone, you know. And it really doesn't take much to at least list something on an app or website first, just in case, before assigning it to the bin. Oh, and here's a sustainability win from someone else, a lovely Check Your Thread patron called Caro, who we've definitely heard from before. Caro says, not sewing related, I was thinking about my digital footprint. I went back through my personal email account and got rid of so many emails that I had no idea I still had. I also reduced the amount of things I store on the cloud and back them up offline. This is such an important point. The data centres that house all the servers that are storing all our digital info, not to mention all the centres that are now having to be created to serve our increasing demand on AI, they take a phenomenal amount of power to run and water to cool. So keeping our digital footprints as low as possible is really important. So like Caro, delete those old emails and get rid of any duplicate photos and the ones that you don't need. And the next time a newsletter from that company that you never actually open pops into your inbox, take a second to unsubscribe from it altogether rather than hitting archive or delete again. Thank you so much for raising this important topic, Caro. So here's a tiny update from podcast guest Rosanna. So Rosanna let me know this week that they've recently scored some funding for some in-person mending classes. They look super cool and thanks to the funding are ridiculously cheap for attendees. The current batch of in-person classes have sold out, but keep an eye on the shop section of their website and on their Instagram for future dates if you happen to be in or near Wales. So as I say, this episode is part 2 of my chat with Rosanna. You're about to receive more awesome tips about outdoor gear repair, including where to source the fabrics for patching. And we also talk about the exciting new shop aspect of their business. So do make sure you go to the show notes on the website checkyourthread.com for links to everything we talked about that is linkable, and some nice pictures of their workshop and shop space. And I want to ask a quick favour. If you've found value in these episodes, and I'm pretty convinced you will have, please send the episodes to any outdoorsy friends and family that you may have. This is such important advice that can help people keep their outdoor gear in use for way longer than it otherwise might. So please play your part in sharing this information and getting it into as many ears as possible. So until next week, when we'll be stepping away from the topic of mending for an episode, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, delete your old emails and unwanted photos, and enjoy. So let's talk about, another type of outerwear. So Alice has some questions about down or otherwise puffy coats with multiple layers. Like, how do you assess, or how does one assess whether you can mend by sewing through everything versus needing to deconstruct and only getting to a bit? Like, is that something you do?
Yeah. So number 1 rule, if the tear is smaller than your thumb, you can probably get away with a heat patch.
Oh.
Just be aware the heat patch might come off if you put the item in the tumble dryer.
Right.
So if you are going to dry it, it's actually better to hang dry it and then tumble dry it just to fluff up the feathers and get the proofer to stick. For sewing it, it really depends on how the garment's made. So it might be 2 layers of fabric stuffed with feathers. It might be a layer of fabric and then a little down pillow, which is like self-contained in fabric, and then a layer of fabric. Or it might be a combination of those where the down is immediately in contact with the outside fabric, but then there's another layer before it gets to the lining. You'll only be able to tell that either by taking it inside out, like by unpicking it and looking on the inside, or if the hole's big enough, you might be able to tell through the hole. I'd recommend, if you just follow a bunch of outdoor gear repairers on Instagram, I wrote down a few. Finisterre, she had some great videos of her sewing the patches on by hand, which is actually a great technique, and you don't need to worry about which layer you're going through. Just be delicate with the needle and you can get through just one layer. Or Zoe Patches, she's based in the States.
Lots of people mention Zoe Patches.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's a lovely person. You can ask her questions as well. I do all the time. And she's got some great videos. Copy what she does.
Okay, copy Zoe Patches. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really awesome. Because Alice was saying that one of their kids recently caught a pretty new winter jacket on a fence and ripped a hole right in the middle, not on the seam, in other words, where the filling started leaking out. The hole wasn't very big, but a sticky nylon patch wouldn't stay put. And sewing through all the layers seemed like it might restrict the movement of the outer parts in relation to the lining.
You don't want to pinch that lining, because then 2 things. 1, you might restrict the movement, but 2, you might also damage the lining because you might not sew them completely in line with each other, if that makes sense.
Right, yes, and create a little bit of tension.
Yeah. If you've got feathers coming out, there's something to be aware of if you're going to patch it with fabric. Down fabric is calendared, it's called, which is woven in a certain way and coated so that the down feathers can't poke through. And if you put, say, like a cotton fabric, or even if it's just a ripstop nylon, but it's not proofed or woven in the right way, you'll press down on the lovely patch you've just finished and all the feathers will come up through the fabric in a dramatic fashion.
So if you've got like a down duvet or pillow, do they use the same type of fabric then for the cover? Because I'm thinking, I've got a feather pillow and it doesn't poke me.
It's because the feathers they use in outdoor gear, I believe, this is all self-taught, the feathers are so small, they'll go through the fabric, whereas we use bigger feathers. So if you remove a feather from a modern down jacket, it is minute. It's they take it from a special area on the goose.
Oh, okay.
Goose, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So if you're worried that you haven't got the right fabric, what you could do is heat patch the whole back together to contain the feathers and then put a sewn patch on top of that.
That's a very good idea. Yeah, because it doesn't matter too much then if the heat patch starts to kind of come apart a little bit, because then you've contained the patch.
Yeah, exactly. And usually the reason the heat patch will come off is because you abrade it's abrasion on the edge, but the sewn patch is going to keep that safe.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's get back into glue. Because you were talking, a big thing that you were mentioning with your conversation with Nick is that you've found, and it's clear that usually the vast majority of outdoor garments and bags are not designed with repairability in mind. A number of patrons noted that glue is often used either as well as or instead of stitching for seams and also putting in zips. So what problems do glued seams and inserted zips pose to you or to those that are trying to repair it at home?
Two issues is that first they fail in quite a dramatic fashion. So if something's stitched in, you might have a couple stitches wear out, and that's easy to get under the machine and replace those stitches.
Yeah.
The glue will sometimes go all in a oneer. So you'll put the thing in the tumble dryer and then all the glue will fail and all the pockets will fall inside the jacket. The other issue is that sometimes it's glued without any seam allowance. So you'll see this on Arc'teryx hems. The fabric is just folded up and then glued straight down. And so the glue fails, the fabric begins to fray, and you don't have enough seam allowance to fold it around where like the eyelets are, or if there's any, an area that you can't fold in, or if it's around the zip's just... So you're going to try and stitch right on the edge of the fabric, and obviously that fabric's going to fray. So that's a major issue. Also, sometimes it's glued in such a way that you can't get it under the machine because it's not the same shape. Whereas if someone else has stitched it in the past, it's a bit easier to copy what they've done. But sometimes the way, the glue press has worked isn't repeatable with a sewing machine.
Right.
Basically, my top tip is if you see the glue beginning to go, but it's not fully failed, jump on it and stitch it down.
Yeah, this is not going to get better.
Yeah, it's not going to get better. And once it's been fully unglued, it's quite hard to get that fabric back to how it was because it will want to stretch out of shape. The fabric will.
Right, cool. Okay. Well, not cool, but Okay, so Sarah says that they help at a repair cafe. Awesome, Sarah. And came across a ski jacket with 3 zips that needed replacing. Sarah managed to fix one of them with some pliers, but then tried to replace the others, but found that they were glued in as well as stitched. So Sarah tried heating with a hairdryer, but was worried that they were stretching the fabric as they were trying to peel the zip off. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah. Good job, Sarah, for working at a repair cafe. We love that.
Absolutely.
We do a method called we call it cut and sew. And instead of unpicking it, we'll just trim the old zip out and sew the new zip to the reverse if that's a possibility for them. If it's a pocket, I'm guessing there's 3 zips, so it might be a pocket one. We actually the other day did just sew the zip to the outside of the pocket. So cut the old zip out and then sewed so you could fully see all of the edges of the zip, which a professional seamstress who does sort of fashion stuff would probably have a heart attack looking at. However, as an outdoor gear professional, you just want it to work. So
I love a bit of exposed zip tape. That can look good.
Yeah, it's a fashion statement. My number one tip with repairing is you don't have to put the zip in or put the patch in the way that they would have done in the factory. You don't have to do everything by the book. You actually have to break the rules a lot of the time. So don't look at it as if you were making the jacket from scratch, because then you'd have to unpick so much it would be impossible because it would be glued in. So I'd say cut
permission
the
to
out.
fudge it.
Yeah. Be a bodger, but also the neater it looks, probably the better it's sewn. So you're kind of balancing those two.
Sure. Well, that is totally the balance, isn't it? It's like is something going to take you forever, or even not be possible?
Yeah.
Compared to like getting it done, getting it functional, getting it back out there on someone's body.
Yeah.
Cool. So these have been lots of questions about like sturdy garments. So we also have some questions about like finer technical fabrics like windbreakers and running shorts and such. Like, do you get a lot of those to repair as well?
We didn't, because we couldn't do stretch. So the downside, anyone with industrial machines will be well aware that when you pick up your home sewing machine, it says, would you like me to zigzag? Would you like me to make a buttonhole? What would you like today? And an industrial sewing machine goes, I just straight stitched.
Yeah. You can choose the length.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. So before, we had 7 sewing machines, 7 industrial sewing machines, 8? I can't remember.
Were they all set up in different stitches, different thicknesses? Like, why did you need that many?
They all do different things. So we've got 2 that do the same thing, it's called a drop feed, which is basically just your standard straight stitch. And then we had a zigzag. We've got a needle feed where the needle moves to pull the fabric through. And then a walking foot, which a lot of people will obviously have that attachment. It's a whole machine designed like that, so you sort of can't remove that feature. It just does a walking foot. And then we've got something called a bar tacker, which does that little zigzaggy slub.
So jealous.
Yeah.
I've just made some jeans. I'd have loved a bar tacker.
Oh, yeah, come and use it.
Yeah, I will.
It's also a hellish machine to try and repair.
Is it?
Yeah, it's all computerised and it goes very fast. So once it starts to have an issue, it insists on finishing the stitch and gets itself in it. Anyway, yeah, it's a temperamental machine. We also have now a cover stitch machine, so we can do stretch.
Nice.
We had a domestic one, but I did not get on with it. I cannot recommend an industrial cover stitch over a domestic one enough.
Okay.
And an overlocker. Yeah. So yeah, we can do stretch now. There is a slight issue we found that compared to how much time it takes to fix them, they tend to be cheaper items, which is hard. But there's a lot you can do if you've got like little ladder pulls or little tears and holes. I don't know if anyone already follows her, but she's, there's a fantastic lady called Sky who runs Slow Stitch Club. And she's on Instagram posting reels of how to do things all the time. And she also has a book.
Oh, yes, I'm on her newsletter. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Definitely recommend it. And she talks about repairing leggings and stretchy things with darning. And I've copied what she did on a pair of leggings and it's worked a treat. Awesome. So don't be afraid to hand sew. Plus then if you mess up, you can usually undo the hand stitching quite easily because you're going through the fibres rather than cutting them like you would with a needle on a sewing machine. If you are going to use a sewing machine, probably zigzag to sew the patch on. I'd also use a super sharp needle or a really tiny ballpoint one. So yeah, make sure you get the right needle would be my advice, because if you get the wrong one, you might cause more damage and a ladder. Yeah, or don't be afraid to hand stitch. I really like using, my grandma was a quilter, so I inherited a lot of those super sharp, super small quilting needles, and I love them for hand stitching, and everyone else thinks I'm mad because they're so tiny. But
like you've got them, where has it gone?
Yeah.
Awesome. What about things like fine fabrics like nylon or acetate? Any tips on making sure that those mends are quite secure and the fabric doesn't fray? Because they can fray really easily, those fabrics, can't they?
Yeah, you might want to use, if you're near a fray, you can always use a lighter.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
A blob of glue, but make sure, don't use super glue because it'll go hard. You want a glue probably from Gear Aid. There's a bunch, they're all called different things. There's like Silnet. Basically, that's like a silicone friendly one, so you can use that one on tents. But they have a really good guide on their website. If you Google Gear Aid, what glue should I use? It'll tell you. And just a blob of that might help. But I've seen people get a bit keen with the blob and it goes everywhere. And then you're trying to sew into something that's all gloopy. But yeah, if you've got a frayed edge, it might be an idea. Either I use a lighter all the time when things are beginning to fray.
Oh, really? And that creates a seal?
Yeah.
Never seam tape?
Seam tape. So it depends on what the fabric is. You can always have a go, but it does come off in the wash if it's not on the right thing. So it might look like it's stuck and then you take it and put it in the washing machine and it'll come off.
Right.
If it's PU coated, you'll need a PU seam tape. And if it's a 3-layer Gore-Tex looking thing, you'll need the grey tape. And everything else, it's a bit potluck whether or not it will stick. We do actually use waistband interfacing quite a lot. But obviously that's not stretchy. I think you can get stretch interfacing. It's actually iron on, so it sticks on one side. And we use that. That's more for non-stretched trousers where there's like an abrasion tear and you're missing some fabric, so you're trying to get the thing to go back to the shape it was.
Yeah. You
can iron on this stuff just to hold it together, zigzag it to stabilise it, and then put a patch on top.
Right.
Super thin stuff. If it's stretchy, just make sure whatever you do is also going to be stretchy. So don't do a straight stitch, do a zigzag, or if you're doing it by hand, do a cross.
Amazing. Thank you. So we've massively picked your brains on all manner of repair and care advice. Thank you so, so much. obviously there's always development in this area in terms of fabric and maybe construction and stuff. Like, how do you yourself like keep on top with like the developments, or is it just a case of you just wait till something arrives? You're like, oh, I haven't seen this before. Let's see how somebody else has dealt with it on Instagram or something.
There's definitely changes happening, but I think the majority tend to be happening to the materials rather than the construction techniques, aside from gluing stuff together. So it's more about having like top tips of how to handle, say like that zip where you can't unpick it. And that isn't changing so much. If you can't get to it, you can't get to it kind of thing.
Sure.
There's a few things like there'll be a new style of popper or a new style of Velcro come out, but the essential rules of construction seem to stay the same. I think what they're spending their R&D money on is fabrics.
Right.
So the hard thing for us is matching that fabric and getting hold of that fabric.
Right.
We are lucky in that we tend to be working on things that are usually out of warranty unless we're working for a brand. So things are usually 2-3 years old, and it's much easier to get hold of that fabric. But interestingly, going back to that point on the more eco-friendly coatings, there's a question of what we're going to do with all of this fabric that has got the nasty coatings on it, because especially the States are coming down really hard on you're not allowed to sell products. The mill has made the fabric planning to sell it possibly before the garment's been designed. You know, it's a slow process. So there's piles of fabric somewhere, which I'm hoping makes its way into our hands.
Yes, you can use them to repair
the
pegs.
Amazing. Yeah, so if you need 100, if you need a slider, we've got 100. If you need some fabric, maybe one day we'll have 100 meters of banned, illegal, toxic. But it happens to be exactly the fabric on your jacket, which is 5 years old. So it's going to go in the ground at some point. So better use it before it does.
God, it's terrifying when you say it like that. It's
yeah.
So true. Okay, so the last two questions are going to help us neatly segue into talking about your new retail space. So Gina and Hannah are both wondering, like, if you have any suggestions for sourcing good quality gear fabrics in repair-sized amounts. Like Gina, for example, keeps all their webbing, buckles, etc. from decommissioned gear, but usually the notions and haberdashery are saved because the fabric is no longer usable. So those of us who are home sewers, like, any idea like where we can get the stuff?
It's really, really hard. So after zips, that's our second biggest headache, is getting hold of fabrics. Mountain Equipment were very kind and had a warehouse clearance and sent their fabrics to all of the outdoor gear repairers in the UK, which was amazing.
Oh,
like
wow.
a treasure box. So it's always worth giving us a shout. We might have a square of it we can send you. There are some great shops. There's, if people don't know them already, Pennine Outdoor and Pro Fabrics. There's also a new one that's just set up, and he's doing the sort of more modern higher end fabrics like X-Pack. He's also got some amazing stretch fabric, which is expensive but well worth it. It's bomb-proof stuff. He's called Make Your Own Gear UK.
Oh.
And MYOG in Reddit is an amazing place.
Okay.
Highly recommend. There's a lot of information about fabrics. There's also a few in Europe. The only thing is you have to get a minimum order, I think, of over £160-200, so you might need to get all your friends together.
Yeah. Come on, guys, we're opening a repair shop. We haven't got any choice. We've got a minimum order here.
There's one called Extreme Textile. I think it's Extreme because it's, and they've got a range of really good fabrics. Aside from that, I highly recommend getting in touch with the brand and making a fuss, because I really think brands should sell or at least supply squares of fabric for patching. Fjällräven have been incredible. Every time we need to patch something with the G1000 fabric, I send the guy an email. He sends me a patch that's too small to make into a new pair of trousers, so we can't rip them off. But, oh, that's a pun, isn't it? But, it's perfect for it's usually a seat patch on Fjällräven. I think so many wilderness people sit on the forest floor. So yeah, definitely get in touch with the brand. If the brand does repairs, there's a chance there might be the fabric sitting in a box in the UK. So Rab, Mountain Equipment, Paramo, Buffalo, they all do their own repairs. So there's a chance they might be able to sell you the fabric. Or even if you're very nice, they might give it to you for free. But hassle them. Rab have started to provide spares for repairs on their website, buckles and things.
Awesome.
But yeah, hopefully zips and fabrics are next.
Yeah. Oh, this is positive. Sounds like some positive moves are being made towards making garments less
Definitely.
What's that? Built-in obsolescence.
Yeah, the momentum's there. And I think there's a lot of pressure now from people saying, why is this broken? It shouldn't have broken so quickly. Because it's getting to the point where it's breaking well within warranty. Something's breaking after a year or a year and a half. And the brands just can't afford anymore to... I think the customer service bill is probably quite high. So
sure,
it's us complaining that's going to make the difference, I think. I don't think it's going to come from government level, especially when it's technical fabrics. It's not a big enough slice of the pie for them to care about. But yeah, commenting on Instagram, tagging them.
Making a fuss, and then giving them the opportunity to respond and look good.
Yeah, and hopefully it eventually gets to a point where they say, oh, this is email number 52 today. I think we need to change our zips.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So tell me about your new shop. I want to know everything.
So you come in the shop, we'll come in the front area, and there's the desk, and then all the repairs up on the wall, and everyone's always trying to buy the repairs, and then we have to delicately say, I'm sorry, they're broken. And you go around the corner, and it used to be the teacher's lounge. It's a small room, and we've used the scaffolding from some spare scaffolding that was in the roof in the attic. So it's all reused, and we've got vintage secondhand gear, some of which we've sourced ourselves and a lot of which has been donated. It's either something that's needed repair, someone hasn't wanted to get it repaired, they've got a new one and they've said, I don't know what to do with this, I don't want to put it in the bin, I can't donate it because it's broken. So we fix it up, we put the price of the repair, and then we're hoping to collaborate with Mountain Rescue where the rest goes to them. So that we've got a partnership where people can choose sort of the amount. Yeah.
Amazing. So when did the idea for this kind of thing come? Or was it just like you realised that there's a need for this?
A lot of people asked, actually. Customers came in and said, where can I buy secondhand gear, or do you sell secondhand gear? And then I think, so, when you say you're not outdoorsy, I also felt I wasn't outdoorsy. I grew up in wellies. Well, there we go. That's the difference right there. But I grew up outside, but helping my dad because he was a fisherman. My mum was a forest school leader, but I never did I never really climbed aside from, that one school trip or something. I was into windsurfing, so water sports. But when we moved to Wales, Josh said, so my other half is from Llanberis. He said, we're going to have to go up Snowdon, obviously. Idwyddfa. And...
so how do you say it in Welsh, sorry?
Idwyddfa.
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
Yes, it's lovely.
Welsh just sounds like such a magical language, doesn't it? It's like the language of fairies.
Yeah, and it sounds old. It's got history in it. Yeah. Yeah, so he said, let's go. And I was like, oh, cool, I've got my wellies in the car. And his mouth just drops the phone. He was like, what? You can't go up a mountain in wellies. I never had any of the gear. We couldn't afford it. I just had the cheapest PU coated thing that was for sale in the the place you go for farmers' supplies. Right. I was head to toe in, farming waterproofs. The heavy duty stuff, not the lightweight. And I think I always felt like I kind of wasn't in the right kit to belong.
Oh.
There's another book just out. Sorry, I had this onto the library. It's called Shopping All the Way to the Woods by Rachel Gross, who is she's an outdoor gear historian. And if anyone's a geek about this stuff, look her up on Spotify. She's on a bunch of podcasts it's the University of Utah now have a course on outdoor gear design, and they get some really interesting people in.
Oh, fascinating.
Really interesting about the history of outdoor gear and things. And she's talking about how Americans were sold this idea of having to look a certain way to be allowed to go outdoors. And the irony that I've then decided to set up a shop. But the whole point is that people also ask me what's the right gear. There is no right gear. If you're someone who gets very hot, don't get really thick waterproofs. Also, maybe just wear shorts instead of waterproof trousers. If you know that you're safe, have the waterproof trousers in your bag in case you fall over or something. But I get really sweaty, and I also I have eczema. I've sold myself well. But I hate waterproof trousers, so I tend to wear board shorts, and then if they get wet, they dry really quick. And then super thick socks so my feet stay warm. There is no perfect gear. You don't have to spend hundreds of pounds. But what you do need to do is probably try it on and give it a go. So there's no harm in buying something from the shop, taking it for a walk, bringing it back again. Sorry, it wasn't right. That's fine. We'll wash it. We'll put it back in the shop. You don't have to stand in a shop with 5 options of jackets in what they've decided is the sizing that should be available and be told what you have to wear, otherwise you'll be unsafe. No, you know, you wear it, you get cold, you wear it, you get too hot, you'll know what's wrong or right. So it's supposed to be a shop filled with every option because everybody's different.
Aww.
So that's the goal anyway.
That's so good. That's so good. So will you be stocking repair materials?
Yeah, so we've got, immediately as you come in the door, there's a big column covered in Gear Aid products.
Cool.
We're hoping to start stocking zip repair kits as well, which would come with a set of pliers, some instructions, a top stop, and then a variety of different types of sliders so that you have size 3, 5, 8, coil, Vislon, waterproof, all in a little bag. And then you can restock with us, being that we'll always have, hopefully, large quantities now.
Awesome. Are they going to be on your website as well?
Eventually, but that's a product in process.
Okay.
So,
that would be very good because not everyone's very near you.
yeah, we're also thinking of possibly selling fabric squares in like 20, 30 centimetre pieces. Cool, okay. So yeah, if anyone's keen, please let me know what you want.
Yes, okay, everyone badger Rosanna on Instagram or via email. I'm sure people would be really interested in that as an option for sure. And because they're going to want to support you as well.
Yeah, it's a great help to us because it helps us buy in large quantities as well. Yeah. So yeah. And it was a struggle when I first started as well, trying to find the right fabric. So we'll have one that's like insulated things, pack of swatches, waterproof things, pack of swatches with an explanation of what it all is. So yeah, that's the plan.
Do it. Amazing. So thank you so much for talking to me. Where can people find you?
You can follow us on Instagram, just Snowdonia Gear Repair, one big long word, or online if you Google Snowdonia Gear Repair. If you've got a question, best to send me a photo of the issue and yeah, send me an email. Ask away. I'm always happy to answer questions, or if you get stuck and you want us to finish the repair for you, that's also fine. But yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions.
That's really kind of you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!